1. I'm at a loss about what to do about our problem neighbours. We live in an apartment building and share a wall with our neighbours, a man, a woman and their 2 kids. And it has been a nightmare for over 3 years. To summarize, we moved in and immediately there were issues: dog barking 24/7, violent and loud fighting at all hours, kids screaming in the middle of the night, banging on our walls, child and spouse abuse, etc. This was at a point where we couldn't sleep on work nights, and I felt terrorized due to PTSD from past abusive relationships. We waited a year to make a complaint about our landlord. Since the initial complaint, I have reached out maybe 30 or 40 times over the course of 3.5 years, with overwhelming evidence, videos, pictures, recordings, all of the things mentioned above. Each time I got a "I will talk to them," never once did it make a difference. One day the landlord told me to just call the police. I felt that was extreme, but then one of the worst events yet happened. One night I noticed a bug in our bedroom. Upon closer inspection, it was a bed bug. I immediately notified our landlord and began cleaning our apartment and clothing and bed top to bottom. The landlord waited a week before pest control was scheduled, and it turns out these same neighbors had a major bed bug infestation they didn't bother notifying the landlord about. From the screaming next door during the inspection, they were well aware of it, as well as cockroaches, garbage all over their apartment, and animal excrement everywhere. The pest control people and a property caretaker confirmed this with us. We had no signs of bugs and were lucky to notice one before it became an issue. The bug crawled from the wall outlet into our bedroom. CPS visited their apartment, likely called by the maintenance man or pest control, and the man and woman started going around telling everyone we were harassing them and calling CPS on them, which is false. Ever since this pest control inspection, our male neighbor started harassing us, standing and staring at us if we were in common areas of the building, following us through the building and staring in our windows. Finally, after he followed us one night, I decided enough is enough, and called the police like my landlord told us. The police arrived. I explained what was going on to them, and they basically did nothing. They told me I had to deal with the issues through my landlord. The neighbors also made false statements to the police that night, saying we were harassing them, and then 2 minutes later, saying they have never interacted with us. I got a doorbell camera and cameras that face our windows, and caught video of him flipping me off, their kids making faces at our door, and saying rude things about us, and him staring in our windows. I sent video evidence of all this as well to our landlord, and they supposedly had a sit-down meeting with them to go over the rules and make sure they understood. Yeah, sure, a lack of understanding is why they were acting like that. This made little to no difference in their behavior. There is still fighting, yelling, wall banging, and abuse going on. We also now have to submit to monthly pest control visits because of them, which I have to miss work for. Tonight I had just finished a shower and was changing in our bedroom. Our windows are very high, probably 20 feet tall, and we have some privacy film on the bottom of them because a walkway runs right by our windows. I looked out the window and our male neighbor was staring above the privacy film right into our apartment. I made eye contact with him and he immediately looked down and quickly walked away from the window. I assume he saw me changing. I quickly pulled out my phone and snapped pictures of him at the window as he started looking down. I have no idea what to do at this point. The landlord isn't any help, and the neighbors can do whatever they want without fear of any real punishment. The police don't want to deal with it. We also live in a high-crime area, so they usually don't even care unless it's a shooting or worse. And we don't have the money to move elsewhere, as we are expecting a newborn in a few months. What would you do? 2. Been here 3 years. History since day one of basically being given commands on how to live my life, how to act in my apartment, how often to use my garden, how often to cut my lawn, and how much of my garden, and 0 of theirs, is communal, which in reality means they can snoop in my garden. Use a small area for bins as for their bins only. Complain if my lawn isn't cut, honestly, over once per week. Tell me I'm not allowed cameras in my garden due to the small communal path area despite cameras not pointing at that part. Even had them in my bins on many occasions, and they have hidden full security cameras. Not smaller house or garden cameras, full-on ones like you get for businesses. but lie to our shared landlord and complain about me. When I wanted to put up a fence, I got screamed at. Firstly, as they called it, an eyesore, and wanted one that of course was very expensive as it looked nicer. I just want one so I can sit in my garden and not have people steal from it, etc., but will maintain it, clean it, paint it, etc. When I went in for a break after starting to install it, had the woman scream at my door about how it's dangerous and may fall over. It had posts hammered into it, and yet somehow, in the hottest weekend of the year with no wind, it blew over. And the neighbor said it was proof of it being dangerous, and was at my door within literally under a minute from me hearing a bang. The posts were actually missing and stolen, despite when I went out with my dog about 20 minutes before, and they were there. Neighbor said unless I moved the fence right away, from my garden, remember, they would get the police on me for being dangerous as there's young kids in there. They watch me in my garden, go through my bins, spread rumors about me to my neighbors, and tell lies about me from smaller ones that still are trying to manipulate others like their weeds were overgrowing into my garden, under their fence. I had them on my camera complaining how I don't cut my weeds, and so that made me angry. And so I didn't cut their ones. Fast forward 2 weeks, I decided to cut them as they were getting very long, and so now my garden and path is tidy. I have them on camera at my door inspecting my work and complaining. Then, when another neighbor comes out, they tell him how lazy I am for not cutting my weeds, and how they have warned and told me on multiple occasions. Did I mention I have a broken ankle now? I haven't cut my lawn in 2 weeks due to my ankle. Was going to attempt it last weekend, but the padlock on the shed has been damaged. Looks like someone has attempted to break it. I wonder who. They of course complain how I never cut my lawn. Last year I even broke my leg and was stuck indoors for over 3 months and had carers for the first 2 weeks, at 15 minutes a day, so my grass was cut every 3 weeks or so. Friend that did it is an ex-landscape gardener and was doing the weeds and, of course, all their weeds that came into my garden too. The woman would honestly complain every 4 days on average on how the garden hadn't been cut in a few days, calling me lazy. I was on crutches, stuck in an upstairs apartment. I wasn't even meant to answer the door as I couldn't put weight on my leg, and the woman was again spreading rumors. There's a possibility she has dementia, as she's 80, but from what I've heard about some other neighbors who have known her the 20 years she has lived here, she has always been the same and has just gotten a little worse the past few years. She loves her alcohol, can easily drink a large bottle of vodka a day in summer and/or weekends. They are making my life a misery, and to make matters worse, spread rumors about me, tell lies to the landlord. She claimed I keep trying to flash her, she wishes, as I wore shorts and a dressing gown when I wake in the morning and before bed and take my dog into the garden. She claimed I tried to assault her when she was leaning over my fence telling me to watch my back. I am scum, etc., so I swore back at her and gave her the finger gesture. Finally, as this is the short version of things I have experienced, she thinks she owns the 2 private car parking spots outside our home. One is mine, one is hers, as per the tenancy agreement. But should I have guests that park there, she shouts at them and says they are her spots. But she likes her family and friends to park as often as they like, and when I have mentioned things, she claims they are public spots. That's how most apartments go. If it's my garden, she claims it's communal, so she has a say in it. If I say she's in my private space, she says it's communal. Yet if I argue with her about something in her garden, an access spot, she goes, "Well, it's my garden, so I can do what I want." Hellfreezer's note: realistically, in this situation, the only power she has is the power you're allowing her to have. Just treat her like the nuisance she is. She can say whatever she likes, but it doesn't make it true. Your garden is your garden, so do what you want. Have cameras up if you're allowed to have cameras. That's all well and good. If she's got weeds encroaching into your garden, well, report her for it then, see how she likes it. If she starts doing anything illegal, well, that's a call to the cops. If she tries to call the cops on you, great, you're doing nothing wrong, and you can prove it. Make sure you save those videos when she's on property, talking about you, harassing you, that sort of thing. You might need that one day. Make sure you're reporting every incident to the landlord. The fact of the matter is, you're in the right here, so you have all the power. All she has is intimidation, which in reality is nothing whatsoever. 3. So to start from the start, I moved into this apartment. It was fine. Some people I knew from high school actually lived in the apartment on the same floor. The upstairs apartment has a somewhat annoying neighbor. Not the one in question. The landlord was fine, just not very knowledgeable about fixing things, so I did it for her usually. It was just easier. Eventually, the lady upstairs moved out because she didn't like us using marijuana. A legal thing that I have a medical card for in my state. We just smoked on a porch that was under an overhang. After she moves out, some other lady moves in with her very young kids. Annie Oakley. After not long, this new lady decides she doesn't like us smoking on the porch, yells at the neighbors and I. So we move and smoke on the property on a bench I made, like to the side. She has some sort of issue with us smoking there now, not near the house, because she could see in her window from that location. She lives on the top floor. It's literally impossible not to be outside and not near one of the windows to her upstairs apartment, because it was larger, and no matter where you go, there's a window on that side, because it's the whole top floor. The start of extremely silly behavior. Eventually, she decides, for some unknown reason, while we were outside minding our own business smoking, to take her clothes off, stand in front of her window, and just scream. Hellfreezer's note: even in your own home, standing in front of your window blatantly naked like that is illegal in many places. So loud, I think someone is getting assaulted or stabbed or something. Like, top of her lungs, just screams. Then, after screaming, we all look around like, WTF, and see her completely naked in front of the window just screaming. Then she started yelling that we were perverts, staring into her window while she was naked. The video footage the landlord has from the building likely showed us facing away from the building, smoking weed, just hanging out until we looked around in a panic. So, of course, then she gets dressed and comes outside and first starts threatening that she will get her Poppy to come beat us up while recording us on her phone. Sam, the gentleman living next door who we were hanging out with, he goes, "Okay, tell him to come over here, I'll beat the crap out of him." Wife Samantha is visibly terrified by her threatening behavior. Annie, not knowing this guy, used to literally be in special school for kicking the ever-loving crap out of people, and in his life has simply improved himself, so you wouldn't really know. Keeps making a bunch of threats to Sam, Samantha, and myself and my boyfriend John. So I, of course, immediately start recording. My boyfriend was terrified, and I told him to calm down and start recording, so he did. I've dealt with this kind of nonsense. Record everything. She then threatened to call the cops and started freaking out more, saying we were threatening her. She starts walking around the building, recording all my stuff, my bench, my car, starts touching things and trying to move them like my table and chair. I called the cops. They came and said they can't do anything. Natch. They left. She literally smashes the ceiling repeatedly for hours over the weekend at random times of the day and night. Sam gets so angry. He asks her to stop, but she didn't even answer the door or respond. Then when he yells at her to stop, she comes out and says she's being threatened and that she's calling the cops. More nonsense, cops called. This happens repeatedly for like a month. Sam gets mad because he has a bit of an anger issue that he was handling very well. He just leaves with his wife. They stay somewhere else for a bit because it was detrimental to their mental health. My boyfriend is freaking out and doesn't want to be here. I tried being nice and stuff to this crazy person, but Annie didn't care. She kept demanding that we stop smoking marijuana, because of some weird pseudo-religious naturalist thing, and I think being a homophobe. We can hear her smashing things. I occasionally hear kids crying. The police didn't do anything, no matter what we did. Eventually, she steals my bench. She complained so much, my landlord told me to okay it in the corner of the property, where there aren't any cameras, because she keeps randomly threatening him with legal action and threatening not to pay, and apparently it was hard to kick her out because of that. I couldn't give the police any usable video because she demanded it be away from the cameras. So I install 4 separate routers and build a bench of pressure-treated 4x4, 2x6, and make it heavy so it's damn near impossible to move. I make a wooden storage thing under the bench that locks, and put a locking plastic electrical box into it, and run a wire through the hole and seal it. Put an Optimus tracker in it, and a solar panel to power it on the back of the bench facing the sun. I put 2 solar-powered cameras from Amazon on the bench. Cloud Plus cameras, I think. Sam and Samantha, by now, months later, have already moved out because of this, constantly being harassed. I record everything, and continue to call the police repeatedly. They came over 20 times, and there were multiple police reports. One day her heater, oil, decides to stop working because she runs out of oil and has it refilled. Again. So, the pilot light is out. Again. And she screams at the landlord about it because apparently, despite the lease saying never to let the oil go down below a quarter, she lets it run dry. The lease says she is responsible for paying to get it reignited. The landlord does it for her the first time, drives all the way down and does it. Honestly, landlord Benjamin was so tolerant of her and everyone really. So the second time Benjamin tells her she can light it again, she yells at him because she wants it done now, and he has a physical disability and can't. He says he can do it tomorrow, or she can call a contractor as the lease says. She demands he call and pay for someone to do it. Eventually, I think he just gives up and stops responding because she's acting insane. Then she decides to go downstairs into the basement, with her under 12-year-old children, where the heater is, and start randomly pulling things off the heaters. There are 3, 1 per unit, and eventually she randomly turns off everyone's power. And starts yelling, pacing back and forth, forcing her kids to sit there and watch. I noticed the power out and called NICEAG. I had no idea what was going on. I looked at the power lines. Thank God I brought the phone down there with me when I went to check the breakers. As soon as I get down there, she starts screaming at me in front of her children and making threats. So I went, turned my power on, and told her to not touch my breaker box. She immediately walked over and turned it off and started yelling and pacing back and forth again. I walked to my breakers, turned them on, and started recording with my phone after threatening to call the cops again. It isn't a threat to her anymore. They haven't done anything. She admits on camera what she did. When I ask her to not do it again, she says she'll do it again if I don't call and pay for a contractor to relight her oil. I start telling her that I can try to help her light it. She screams at me that I'm not a contractor, and I better not touch her heater. Then, despite her turning off everyone's power, and taking apart the heaters and throwing things all over, I keep recording, wait down there and tell my boyfriend to go inside, start recording, and get the bear gun and keep it handy. A rubber ball gun, it's non-lethal and CO2 powered, and start recording. She freaks out and keeps making threats. Again, she physically assaults me and tries to steal my phone because she realized I was recording it all. In front of her kids, cops called, not enough evidence she assaulted me, camera was in low definition. I swear I was right about just to crack her as hard as I could right in her face and pin it full force against a cement wall, but I stopped myself because the children looked absolutely terrified and had been frozen against the wall the whole time. One of them had wet pants and I think they urinated on themselves, the youngest one. She leaves and starts saying I assaulted her. The landlord gets video from a battery-powered camera she didn't realize was running. It's obvious she started it, but not enough to prove anything. And she didn't injure me because, as loud as she is, she's certainly not very strong. A day later, she takes my chair and puts it in the dumpster. I put it back and call the cops. While I'm outside on the phone with the police, she steals it right in front of me and walks into her apartment with my lawn chair. I call the cops again. They say they're going to do something about it, and then promptly do nothing despite there being 3 different cameras recording it. I take the bench, it facing her only door from a significant distance away, and put 5 separate cameras on it facing her. I set an extremely loud siren on all of them to go off at any point if there is motion. Record and flash lights. It's the most obnoxious thing ever, and now the cops come and tell me that if I don't move it, I'm harassing her somehow. Oh no, it's a problem. Threatening people for months and stealing their stuff? Nah, that's fine, but God forbid I record her so I have evidence and make noise like she does banging on the ceiling randomly. They then say they actually did do something, and what they did after I filed like 2 hours of paperwork, that it seemed like they just kept making it up to get me to try to give up. They said they're going to summon her to court, and I have to go through the courts to get my chair back or be reimbursed. Never got a summons, but my landlord used this to be able to evict her, finally, and gives her 2 months' notice. So after installing security cameras and more bot scouts, a home assistant with motion sensors for security, and all sorts of stuff, in 2 months she will be required to leave. Well, I bet she won't go willingly. And if she doesn't, the sheriff will make her supposedly. In the meantime, she's still being a gigantic nuisance. Update. She has since randomly recorded me and harassed me on my porch once. She seems to stop if she is entirely ignored sometimes, but as I said, she is getting evicted soon. Update 2. So she has finally been evicted from the apartment and left completely, and took all the stuff with her except a bunch my landlord had to move that was basically trash, that I think he's charging her for. Took the whole day, had a U-Haul van, used someone else's SUV to move a bunch more stuff back and forth. At least 5 trips that day. I just smoked weed outside and watched her leave. Feels good knowing she's actually gone and not going to be an active threat anymore. She did this before too. She lived right down the road and would harass the neighbors in the next building who smoked weed, got kicked out for crazy stuff there too. Sounds like she could benefit from having some weed, actually. Her kids just have to deal with all this crazy stuff. Every time. Like every year, probably getting evicted with their mom, having to uproot everything. 4. It is nearly 2 in the morning, and I have had yet another disturbance from my upstairs neighbors. When I first moved in, my neighbors sounded like they were bowling up there, bouncing a ball, spilling a giant bag of batteries, moving furniture. Just any type of sound imaginable. They were doing. When I was on my patio, the guy came out onto his and explained they have a toddler that likes to run around the apartment, and they're trying to get him to quiet down. Me being a kind and understanding neighbor let him know that's okay. I understand kids. I don't have kids. After that convo, I've heard them make passionate love many times. A few times I've been woken up during my Saturday sleep in summer to their bed banging the wall with a pounding noise on my ceiling, with the lady screaming and exclaiming her delight, "Capital Dick, good job, my love. Now you're getting in the way of my sleeping time. Okay, not cool." Then I heard the lady screaming, but not in pleasure this time. She was screaming at the top of her lungs how she hated him. Wish she'd never met him. He's effing crazy and all sorts of obscenities. Altogether, there have been numerous instances where they are extremely loud and cause a disturbance. But I don't care enough to tell management because what is that actually going to do? So I've just been going through my life. That is until tonight, 1 a.m., I'm putting one of the cats to bed, petting him in his bed and singing goodnight to him. When all of a sudden I start hearing loud bangs upstairs. I hear them for a good 5 minutes, and just chalk it up to it being their child. Kind of late for a young'un to be up this late causing a ruckus, but hey, not my chair, kid, not my problem. Free birth control, to be honest. It isn't until I start to hear ear-piercing screaming and yelling that I realize it is not the child. No, it is the lady yet again. She was throwing things, pushing chairs and the table, throwing things at the wall, slamming something on every syllable she said. It went on for 25 minutes, and I took a few videos for evidence? I don't know. What if I end up being a witness? Finally, I had enough. It's been going on for 30+ minutes, and it's time to quiet down. I went up the stairs and could hear her even more when I got to their door. They also have across-the-hall neighbors, and gave the door a nice loud thud, stern 1, 2, 3 knock. She instantly stopped yelling. I waited outside for a couple of minutes, and nobody answered the door. I called that a win and went back to my place. Her screaming made me fear for their child's safety. I can absolutely not call the cops because as much as they're trained to de-escalate the situation, I do not believe that would happen for fear it would end in fatality or fatalities. I'm taking Benadryl and putting in earplugs. Maybe I'll check on them tomorrow. Or should I actually talk to management this time and show them the videos I have? Yes, that one, do that one. And honestly, if it keeps going on the way it is, I call the cops. These folks aren't being considerate of the fact that they have neighbors around them that have lives and jobs and have to maintain a proper sleep schedule because, my God, not getting enough sleep will take its toll on you. Then call the cops. You confirmed in the comments the family's not white, so that's why you're reluctant to call them. So report them to whoever runs the building. Report them to your landlord. And be prepared to eventually have to call the police. That might be the only viable option you have in the end. But unless and until you get to that point, keep documenting everything and pass it on to your landlord. 5. I made my neighbor, along with his whole family, mad with snide remarks and side glances. First off, we live on a lake with a community dock shared by 4 neighbors. My neighbor closest to me just recently bought the place and turned it into an Airbnb about 2 years ago. He is letting the renters use our community dock, even though we all had a meeting and agreed this was wrong, since the Corps could revoke our whole dock for renting it without the proper commercial license. This license would be impossible for them to receive because they only issue them for special cases like hotels on the waterline. We begged him not to, but he basically told us he would do what he wants. I do what I want. And doesn't care what we want, or what the Corps says. He claims he can get around them because he has a government job. No clue what he actually does. The dock is supposed to be private to the 4 owners. However, we now deal with strangers every time we go down there. They don't know the rules of the dock or lake and constantly do things that could wind up in a ticket to the dock owners. The Corps of Engineers has strict rules and regulations, including no one shall make money off Corps property. This includes the dock. My neighbor got a $1,000 fine one year for putting flower pots on the Corps property line. The renters do stupid things like tie kayaks and sea-doos to our side of the dock. This is a $1,000 to $2,000 fine. They've also been into our fishing nets and put a hole in mine, and dropped my spare in the lake. Now I'll get into why the Airbnb neighbor and his family hate me. We were down at the dock last weekend, and there were what I thought were renters while we were there. He's told them all to say their families so they won't get fined and trespassed. I made a couple of comments that they aren't supposed to be on the dock. I was, however, cordial and friendly. The visitor turned out to be his brother. Then, a few days later, another big group of people were down there in his slip. I wasn't friendly, but I also wasn't side-eyeing or making remarks like he claims. One teenage boy was down there when we first got there and had a net, and I assumed it was one of the other dock owners because they are constantly just helping themselves to other people's stuff. How would they know? They're renters. So, our Airbnb neighbor, Big Al, told me to call or text if I ever had problems. I texted and told him about the nets not being free for them to use, and to please let them know because there was a hole put in mine. Apparently that was his net, and they were his family, not his renter, this time. He called and chewed me out saying I was making up lies and the lake is free to everyone. The lake is, our private dock is not. Shortly after all this, I got a message from one of his family members that was making me sound like a terrible person, and was very condescending. I feel like his family would have the same attitude if the roles were reversed, but I'm also being accused of things I really didn't do. I will attach part of the message I got, so tell me if I'm in the wrong. Here's a snippet from the messages. Side note, she also assumes I'm a mama because I had our little cousin down there. Hey there, I was your neighbor for a couple of days at the lake. I just wanted to reassure you that my kids didn't use your family's fishing net the other day. They didn't mess with anything in your family's slot for that matter. I'm a chef, like you, so raising good kids that are decent human beings is kind of a big deal to me. I don't think raising kids and raising bread is the same thing, but okay. It does make my heart sad that it would be so important to you guys to make random people feel unwelcome at such a beautiful place in Florida. Snide comments, side-eyeing, and false accusations just aren't a good look for anyone, but especially not someone who is a mama and a chef. As a fellow chef, you and I are used to seeing the bad in people. What? I encourage you to open your heart and try to see the best in people. It is truly refreshing for your soul. Oh, you know this hoe has a Live, Laugh, Love poster. Hopefully we see you guys again soon at the lake. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Naughty Neighbours episode 50. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button and consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. And if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon is available. It's linked in the description. $1 or more if you would like a month, and you get early access to the videos on Monday. There is also a link to my merchandise store on Teespring. Okay, let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: do you have a teacher that always sticks in your memory, no matter how old you get? The older I get, honestly, it's a bit more of a struggle to remember a number of the teachers I had when I was younger, but I always remember Mr. Ferry, who was an English teacher, a nice older gentleman who had a propensity for randomly jumping up and standing on the desk to get everyone's attention. He was a good teacher, made learning not only fun but very easy. And apparently in his younger days, he said he used to actually walk across the desks. Now, I wonder if I was just enamored of that because most other teachers didn't have that kind of personality when I was a teenager, although I had many excellent teachers. Everyone just has their own way of doing things. But I wonder if I would find it as endearing as an adult in my cynical, grumpy years. Let me know what you think in a comment below. I look forward to reading your answers. And before we go, we'll take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one comes from Naughty Neighbours 49, and it was about favourite stand-up comedians. Today's answer comes from WMD Kitty. George Carlin, hands down. Steve Hofstetter is good too. Worthy successor to George, I think. Thank you very much for your answer, WMD Kitty. I am somewhat familiar with the work of Steve Hofstetter. I've seen a number of his sets. He's entertaining. I enjoy his stuff. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.